17 years ago, the Venezuelan government expelled Israel's diplomats and took the floor of the UN to condemn Israel as a genocidal state. This week, that exact same party invited them back. Deeply held ideological beliefs of a ruling party do not change overnight. When 20 years of foreign policy are discarded in a single week, it suggests that the people inside the offices are no longer the ones making the decisions. There is a specific reason for that shift. In January 2026, U.S. military forces entered Venezuela and captured Nicolás Maduro. He was flown out of the country, leaving a sudden, massive void at the top of the government. The woman running the country since then is his former vice president, Delcy Rodriguez. In the same week that Israel helped her country recover from a devastating earthquake, she quietly reversed the anti-Zionist policy that had defined her party for a generation. The timing of this diplomatic reversal, happening only after Maduro was removed, indicates which country actually holds the leverage in Caracas now. In 2009, Hugo Chávez completely severed diplomatic ties with Israel over its military operations in Gaza. Standing against Israel was a foundational badge of loyalty to a specific anti-Western bloc. It was the price of admission for Venezuela's deep alignment with Iran, Russia, and Syria.
Domestically, the interim government still uses Chávez's branding, his flags, and his socialist imagery. On the streets of Caracas, the party looks exactly the same as it did a year ago. But abroad, in the arena of diplomacy, they have walked away from the very cornerstone of Chavista identity. The official reason for the change is humanitarian. After twin earthquakes hit Venezuela in June 2026, Israel sent more than 50 emergency responders, making it the country's largest overseas emergency deployment on record. If we track the timeline starting from Maduro's capture, we see the earthquake and the arrival of Israeli aid occurring 7 months later. But other data points are hiding within that same window. During those same months, Venezuela resumed direct flights to the U.S., and the Pentagon reportedly began military exercises near the Venezuelan capital itself. Most importantly, the interim government began aggressively opening access for Western companies to extract Venezuelan oil. Humanitarian gratitude rarely overrides 2 decades of hostility. Instead, this shift appears to be a direct result of the new economic and military incentives established since Maduro's departure. The old Iran-Venezuela alliance was purely transactional. When Caracas was isolated by sanctions, Iran supplied oil refining equipment and military drone technology to keep the regime running. Hostility toward Israel was the required loyalty payment Venezuela made to maintain that Iranian lifeline.
Reaching out to Israel, Iran's most direct regional adversary, is a signal that Caracas is no longer interested in paying that fee. In the language of diplomacy, Venezuela is broadcasting that it is officially stepping out of Tehran's orbit. This realignment lines up with Washington's new leverage over Caracas. For the interim government, it is a survival tactic to gain legitimacy and capital, not a genuine change of heart. This is a measurable strategic loss for Tehran. Iran has just lost a key foothold in the Western Hemisphere that allowed it to move money and materiel with minimal oversight. The prize for the interim government is an escape from the strict U.S. sanctions that froze the economy under Maduro. Venezuela holds the world's largest proven oil reserves. Reopening that infrastructure to Western companies provides the capital the interim government needs to stay in power. Restoring ties with Israel costs the Rodriguez government very little at home, but it buys the goodwill and investment it needs to survive. For Americans, this shift affects everything from gas prices to migration pressures at the U.S. southern border. A stabilized Venezuela with open energy markets changes the strategic map of the hemisphere.
It also represents a rare strategic victory for the United States, stripping away one of Iran's global partners without firing a shot. Delcy Rodriguez still uses the language and imagery of Chávez at home, but abroad, her government is responding to Washington's incentives rather than the old party ideology. If this pattern holds, Israel will not be the last relationship Caracas quietly rebuilds as it begins to distance itself from its old allies in Russia and Cuba. Geopolitics shapes the world around us, and every alliance shift has consequences. Subscribe our YouTube channel, Geopolitics Impacts, for sharp geopolitical analysis that explains how these power moves impact you. Turn on notifications and stay ahead of the next major shift in global power.